United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for an immediate end to the fighting in Ethiopia. As the United States warned, there is no military solution to the African nation's civil war. The UN's call comes as Ethiopian media reported that Abiy Ahmed, the country's prime minister and a Nobel Peace Prize winner, is at the battlefront giving leadership from the battlefield. High-profile Ethiopian athletes, including national hero Haile Gebrselassie, parliamentarians, party and regional leaders have also pledged to join Ethiopian forces and men battling rebels from the Tigray region. War broke out in November 2020 in the region between Ethiopian federal troops and the Tigray People's Liberation Front. In July, the conflict spread in two neighboring regions in northern Ethiopia. The rebels are advancing towards Addis Ababa, the capital. And to discuss the prevailing situation in Ethiopia, a professor of international relations, David Aworawo, joins me via Zoom in Lagos. Good to have you join us.
Thank you.
So let's look at that, because just a year ago, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed did say that this was going to be a short-term, and he said a very short-term military offensive against the rebels in Tigray region. But this is now over a year. And it's still ongoing. Does it sort of look like this conflict is coming to home stretch?
Of course, when conflicts like this break out, sometimes the extent to which things will become will not be immediately known, and everyone involved will want a quick, end. So the Prime Minister was speaking from the point of view of what you will want to happen. But that is not always the case, in reality, especially when the fighting arises from, perception that government is not doing well, and it takes the form of an insurgency, just like, Ethiopia is experiencing. So, I mean, that was his, first optimism at that time. But the reality is what we are confronted with now.
So let's look at the technicality of this conflict. For example, the Oromo Liberation Army has now joined the TPLF, which is the Tigray People's Liberation Front. They are now a team, they're allied, fighting for self-determination. The Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has labeled them terrorist groups, which means that he cannot negotiate with them. On the other side, the Ethiopian National Forces are being joined by the Amhara forces, who are also fighting the Tigray forces over land issues. Now, these are different groups with different motives in this war. How difficult does this make this in terms of the pathway to political resolution?
Yes, the coalitions being formed, joining of forces, has made the conflict exceedingly intricate. Resolving it now requires a lot more effort than, how things were before now, which is why all the efforts by the African Union and, other interested, global actors hasn't quite yielded fruit. But at the end of the day, diplomacy is more difficult now, but that is the only way around it, because the way the whole conflict has now become complicated even makes diplomacy, more pressing. Because, I mean, it's not a war that will come to an end or that will be decided at the, militarily anytime soon. So at the end of the day, the diplomatic option, will be what will work. So it is complicated and it is intricate, but somehow some diplomatic, resolution has to be found. The complications of the coalitions, alliances being formed, makes diplomacy even more important as the only option that can bring the war to an end anytime soon.
Regional agencies and international agencies have been on this, trying to figure out a way. In fact, the UN's envoy was in that country just a few days before an airstrike by Ethiopian National Forces on Tigray, on the TPLF. So it does look like this is defying all efforts to use diplomacy to settle this issue. What other sort of pathway or mechanism can be used when it comes to peaceful resolution of this crisis?
Well, Unfortunately, the Ethiopian government thinks that some of the actors, some of those who are interested in diplomatic resolution, are actually supporting the Tigray People Liberation Force, and it has made the whole thing more complicated. When for diplomacy to be successful, there is this element of trust that is required. There is trust deficit right now, and that is making diplomacy, complicated. But at the end of the day, I think the leaders, on both sides, especially the Prime Minister of Ethiopia and the leaders at the other end, the Tigray, in the Tigray in Mekele, they need to be reasonable. They need to understand that this is a war that it will be difficult, very still difficult to win militarily. It is true that the rebels have the Tigray army has recorded gains, in the past, in the last couple of weeks. But victory will not come that easy. The way the Ethiopian people, the forces, the prime minister, the athletes, and everybody the way they are mobilizing shows how determined they are to crush, those seeking self-determination. So at the end of the day, reasonableness at the level of leadership of Ethiopia, the prime minister is a Nobel laureate, and one expects a measure of responsibility along that line from him, and then reaching out to the other side so that some concessions must be, granted here and there, must be given on this side and on the other side, so that diplomacy can gain momentum and some solution can be
It's
found. As it is now, if any
it's
of the sides think that
I
they
agree
can
with you on
win
the
it,
note. I agree that it is a very complicated situation, but we'll see how things play out. The Prime Minister is at the battlefront. We'll see how it plays out. Thank you so much for talking to us, Professor of International Relations, David Aworawo.
thank you.